Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. He's in. BC's Attorney General David Eby officially throws his hat in the ring to run as leader of the NDP. Also,
we do things via phone calls.
Virtual health. Patients say it's a necessity, why some doctors don't recommend it. And
what happened to me has happened to, if not all of you, most of you, or someone you know.
Taking justice into their own hands. Penticton residents confront thieves as police urge calm.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening, I'm Lien Yeung. Thanks for joining us. And you are going to be looking at a live shot from Kitsilano Neighborhood House. We are expecting to hear from Attorney General David Eby any minute. He's announcing that he will seek the leadership of the BC NDP and likely become BC's next premier. We are watching the announcement closely, and we will bring it to you live as soon as we see him head towards the podium. And in the meantime, to other news, there are many reasons why people move from one city to another. You leave behind friends, family, and jobs. But with the healthcare system under duress and staff shortages plaguing the province, a family doctor is one thing more and more people are refusing to leave behind. Belpiri reports in our series, Situation Critical.
Some fresh greens for dinner.
When Deborah Barley and her husband traded Metro Vancouver for the Kootenay, she was okay to leave behind a lot of things, but not her doctor.
Well, I kept my doctor in Maple Ridge, so, we do things via phone calls.
The doctor is 700 kilometers away.
You get into your 60s, you need to see a doctor at least once a year. You know, your physicals. I'm relatively healthy, but I do have some problems.
Rick Merrill's doctor is in White Rock. Before he moved, the 71-year-old took some precautionary steps.
Knowing that I was going to come to the Kootenays, I wanted to get a lot of testing done that I would probably get in the next 5 years anyway.
Given the shortage of family doctors, those who have them aren't about to readily give them up.
Hi Marie, how are you today?
Dr. Carlin Mann has 20 patients who live in the Fraser Valley on Vancouver Island and in the interior, nowhere near his Burnaby practice.
Most of them started off living here and then they moved away, but they weren't able to find a family doctor to where they moved to.
It's estimated 1 million British Columbians don't have a doctor.
I understand how people are moving and trying to retain their family doctor, but this is the issue of feasibility, is that we need to be providing access to family doctors across the province.
The long-distance model may work for preventative care, but in the event of serious illness or injury, it could fail.
The College of Physicians and Surgeons has a rule that if you are going to see a patient from afar, they have to be able to make it to see you in the clinic if it's necessary. So that's what I always tell my patient, that as long as they're able to fulfill that aspect of our physician-patient relationship, then I will still be your doctor.
What's practical is a choice.
If it was severe, then I would definitely have to go out there. I try to kill two birds with one stone with other appointments, but so I'm juggling some of my medical needs to accommodate the price of gas, put it that way.
With access to family doctors becoming increasingly difficult, many say long distance is the only alternative. Belpiri, CBC News, Vancouver.
A woman has been charged in connection with a fatal stabbing last week in Yaletown. 29-year-old Justin Mormon was stabbed to death on July 11th near Smythe and Homer Street. After a week-long investigation, police arrested 34-year-old Lindsay Scott on Sunday near Main and Hastings. She has been charged with one count of second-degree murder. Police believe the victim and the accused do not know each other, suggesting this is a random attack by a stranger.
This incident was frightening to a lot of people. It's a very serious and violent incident that occurred in a very busy neighborhood right downtown Vancouver. Got a lot of attention. Understandably, it's unnerving to people.
VPD's homicide team is still gathering evidence. Anyone with information or Mormon or Scott's whereabouts before the incident last Monday are asked to contact police. And let's go back now to Kitsilano, where Attorney General David Eby is about to announce his run to become BC's next premier.
Can you please all stand up or wave from the BC NDP caucus to everybody in this room?
And you can see the packed room tonight. This is at the Kitsilano Neighborhood House.
We have some friends joining us on Zoom, which I don't think it works.
Adrian Dix is along the wall, along with many other MLAs.
Gathering together. And if you really look at the diversity
So David Eby has said he has the support of 48 of his colleagues.
It's incredible.
And so far, he is the only person expected to declare that he is in the running to be the leader of the BC's NDP.
A long way to make sure we build a community that's more equitable and inclusive for all. And thank you, John, for leading us for so many years under your leadership.
All right, well, Katrina Chen there, I believe that's who it is, that's on the podium. She's going to speak, and a couple more introductions before we come back to Kitsilano Neighborhood House as we expect David Eby to announce his bid to become BC's premier.
Hello. Please turn off your cell phone if you can, or mute your cell phone at this moment. But I know we're all addicted to social media, and last night I was looking on Twitter. There's so much chatter about so many people.
And the Vancouver Park Board is resuming its regular meeting tonight after abruptly shutting down yesterday. That's after an exchange with the speaker became heated, and both trustees and staff said they felt threatened and unable to continue.
Your board is so ideological that we're seeing your staff as ideological. Your staff is now perceived by
Okay. I would like to stop you there. Accusations of staff being ideological are outside the boundaries and scope of what's appropriate considering our code of conduct.
You can hear Park Board Chair there, Camille Dumont, interjecting. The speaker was the third of nearly 50 who signed up. He said he was frustrated with delays and what he sees as a lack of detail on a report addressing car access and bike lanes in Stanley Park. He described the board as a lame duck board. The meeting resumes tonight. And back to our coverage of the country's distressed healthcare system. Recent figures show Canada now has fewer than 3 doctors per 1,000 people. And while it's doing better when it comes to nurses, burnout is so severe, many are just walking away. Here's Anita Bath on the battle just to keep the system fully staffed.
Nathalie Staquet-Doucet spent 12 years nursing in Quebec before quitting this year.
Workload, scheduling, and basically the non-existence of work-life balance.
She left once before, but went back during COVID out of duty.
It was a hellscape, honestly. I mean, I still have nightmares about it.
Across Canada, hers is a common theme.
I think the most fundamental thing is for them to feel valued. They have been working extremely hard in conditions amidst the pandemic, the opioid crisis, and burnout rates and moral distress that is increasingly challenging.
Today, the PM was asked when Canadians can expect change.
We just announced $2 billion to flow to the provinces.
But funding takes time to flow, and staff shortages are already shutting emergency rooms in almost every province, all as healthcare workers call for help.
We went to medical school to look after patients, not to fill in forms and to do charts.
Less administrative work and more support staff in the short term.
IT staff, secretarial staff, portering staff, which means we need staff to help patients not to be alone all the time.
Looking ahead, some workers say things like free mental health care, flexible schedules, and benefits for remote service like student loan or tax relief would help keep them in the field. Back in Montreal, Staquet-Doucet says if things do get better, she'll answer the call again.
I miss it, seeing patients every day, but I'm not ready to give my mental and physical health for that.
Until then, she'll watch and hope. Anita Bath, CBC News, Vancouver.
The sexual assault trial for former Vancouver Canuck Jake Virtanen continued today in Vancouver. The woman at the center of the allegations was back on the stand for a second day, this time for a cross-examination by the defense, trying to discredit her, saying she has a financial motivation. Karen Larson is following the trial and has this report.
In cross-examination, the defense brought up that the complainant, who alleged she was sexually assaulted by Jake Virtanen almost 5 years ago, lost her job right before her civil claim in 2021, suggesting she was worried about her financial situation. The woman, who can only be identified as MS, made a quick and sharp denial. "No, I wasn't," she said. The alleged incident took place in Virtanen's hotel room in September of 2017 when he was playing for the Vancouver Canucks. MS said the first time she met Virtanen, 2 months earlier at the Calgary Stampede, she was not attracted to him because he was so highly intoxicated. Cross-examination of MS continues on Wednesday in BC Supreme Court in Vancouver. It's not known if Virtanen will take the stand. Karen Larson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Indigenous leaders in Williams Lake are calling for a public inquiry into an incident involving the RCMP. While officers were responding to a call for help, a man died from self-inflicted injuries. Chief Willie Sellers says it was a distress call gone wrong and that a heavy-handed police response led to the man's death.
What should have resulted in a welfare check with properly trained individuals instructed to de-escalate the situation top roach and down instead resulted in a response by a swarm of ERT personnel with automatic weapons, body armor, armed vehicles, and tear gas.
Police watchdog the IAO is investigating the case and is asking for witnesses to contact them. And now let's go back to Kitsilano, where Attorney General David Eby is about to announce his run to become BC's next premier. Just stepping onto the podium, he's arrived with his family.
Well, hello, everybody. What a wonderful thing to see you all gathered in our beautiful neighborhood house. Welcome to Kit's neighborhood house. Welcome to Kitsilano. Thank you for joining us. Thank you very much to Howard for welcoming us to the territory. Thank you, Katrina, for suggesting that I didn't want to wake my kids up because I'm a kind and generous person. As a parent, if the kids are asleep, it's just such a precious moment. They're so cute when they sleep. And thank you very much, Doug. It's been an honor to work with you, and thank you for coming out to say those kind things about the work we've done together and the work that we have yet to do. If you don't mind, and I know you've heard a lot of thank yous already tonight, but I would like to start with some thank yous. You saw me come up with my beautiful and brilliant wife, Kaylee Lynch. She is... There is no doubt she keeps the wheels on the bus, and thank you, Charmer. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your support. Thank you for keeping our family together in challenging times. I know we've got a lot of challenge to come, it looks like, and thank you for all you've done for us. We've got 2 kids, and a night like tonight has a big impact on them. Now, Ezra is 7 years old. He's the best big brother his little sister could ever have. He makes me proud to be his dad every single day. Ez, where are you, bud? He's already escaped. So he's got good political sense as well. And our 2-year-old Iva who's probably out there as well. She's wearing her amazing party dress. She's smart, she's funny, and she's strong. And she's just like her mom. I'm so proud of my family, and thank you to both of our beautiful kids for all that you're about to go through that you don't even realize yet. Continuing with family, you've heard from Doug, you heard from Katrina, you'd hear it from all of my colleagues who are here tonight about an unofficial member of our family, John Horgan, who built our province through some of the most challenging times we've ever seen as British Columbians. I just want to say John's not with us. He's somewhere on the Central Coast right now. I spoke to him today. I want to say, John, thank you for your work. Thank you to you, to Ellie, to your family, for your selfless service to British Columbians, for your entire professional life. John has been a mentor to me and has given me every opportunity, and I'm so grateful for that and so grateful for where we are today as New Democrats. And I want to thank the 48 MLAs in our caucus who are supporting me here tonight. 48 MLAs. Thank you, colleagues. They're from all across the province, from the north, from the interior, from the island, from the lower mainland. A bunch are here tonight. A bunch are joining us electronically, representing the diversity of our province, representing the geography of the place we live, communities across the province. You know me best because we've worked together, and I appreciate your discretion. And I really very much appreciate your support. I don't take it for granted. It's an honor to work with you, and I look forward to working with you, I hope, in a different way. So last and certainly not least, a lot of you in this room have reached out to me, to our family. Many of you have supported me for a long time in this job. There are many people across the province who are watching, who are supporters. There are people here tonight in spirit, electronically, in person. Thank you. Thank you for your support. I couldn't have done this without you to get to this point, and I certainly wouldn't be standing here tonight without your support. Thank you to all of you. Go ahead, give yourself a round of applause. Go ahead. It is because of all of you. It is because of all of you and your confidence in me. Zussman. It's because of all of you and your confidence in me that I will be putting my name forward, and I want your consideration as the next leader for the BC NDP.
And there you have it. That is Attorney General David Eby stepping down from his role as Attorney General, and he's throwing his hat in the ring to become the leader of the BC NDP. He is now officially in the running, and what you're looking at is a live shot from Kitsilano Neighborhood House, where he's making that announcement in his riding in Vancouver Point Grey. All right. And there is growing outrage in Penticton over street crime, and some residents are taking matters into their own hands. They are confronting alleged thieves in an attempt to take back their stolen property. Today, hundreds of people held a rally, calling on authorities to do more. The CBC's Brady Strachan was there.
What started as a Facebook post about stolen property has quickly morphed into this rally in a Penticton park, with hundreds of people calling for authorities to clean up the streets.
The message here is that things need to change. We need to see change. If we don't start to see change, well, as you can see, people are starting to get a little upset.
Business owner Jason Rainin started this movement when he went out to find his bike after a break-in. And after confronting someone on the street, he got it back.
It's well within my rights to go and take it back or ask for it back at any point.
Now, his Facebook group, Clean Streets Penticton, has more than 2,000 people, many of them posting photos of people living on the streets with suspected stolen property, and others calling on the city, the RCMP, and the province to do something about crime.
They were here and they kept forcing me back.
Ice cream store owner Sharon Brown is part of the group. Last summer, she was attacked in her shop by two men who then stole her cash register.
We're fed up, yeah. And, you know, the police don't respond because there's so much. They can only do so much.
The outrage is catching the ear of political leaders, and Penticton's mayor is calling for calm.
I can understand their feelings. But, you know, we have a law enforcement in the city of Penticton, and they're the ones that should be handling this type of a situation so no one gets hurt.
That's a message echoed by the RCMP, which says any vigilante-type action to retrieve stolen items will only further stretch already limited policing resources. Meanwhile, advocates for people living on the streets worry about the growing outrage and are concerned it may lead to violence.
And if they're approached by an intimidating group of people, they may choose to fight, and that is not good for anyone involved.
She's calling for more resources for people living in survival mode on the streets. Today, rally organizers met with the mayor and the RCMP, a discussion they hope will lead to a noticeable change in a crime problem felt by many. Brady Strachan, CBC News, Penticton.
The Nahomin wildfire burning near Linton has now grown to more than 20 square kilometers as the province is heating up with a string of hot, dry days ahead. As Joel Ballard reports, officials are concerned that this could make containing the blaze even tougher.
Patrick Michel lost his home last year in the Lytton fire. Now he's living with his family in an RV on Lytton First Nation land. Less than 2 kilometers away, a new wildfire is burning.
I saw a plume of black smoke, and obviously the first reaction was not again.
The wildfire has now been burning for 6 days, all the while growing in size. The Lytton First Nation says 8 homes have been destroyed.
It's trauma on trauma, and it's not unexpected, because you'd think that after last year and the atmospheric river of November and the extreme cold and snow in December, we would get a blessing or a break. But we didn't.
Around 130 wildfire service crew members and 10 choppers are battling the blaze. And thanks to a warming trend in BC, things could potentially get worse.
And while it'll be above seasonal for most of BC the next few days, it's really Sunday into early next week that we're worried about record-breaking heat. That's why we could be looking at heat warnings, special weather statements for a huge swath of the province.
High temperatures are expected across the province. In Lytton, it will likely hit mid-30s by Thursday.
There's a lot more sun. The fuels are going to heat up earlier in the day. They're going to dry out earlier in the day. So you're going to start to see the fire become a lot more active earlier and earlier each day.
And it's not just the heat creating problems.
Winds have been incredibly strong the past couple of days in through the Fraser Canyon. We were talking gusts to 70 kilometers per hour the past couple of days.
And those winds can further spread the wildfire. Fortunately, wind speeds are expected to drop, but only slightly, still gusting up to about 50 kilometers an hour. Back at the Lytton First Nation, Michelle is taking it one day at a time.
When anybody goes through a crisis as an individual or family, resilience is the ability to live through that experience and come out the other end.
So he sports his Lytton Strong t-shirt proudly in the face of yet another emergency. Joel Ballard, CBC News, Vancouver.
In London tonight, the sweltering temperatures is spurring discussions, as Margaret Evans reports, not just about climate change, but how to prepare for a warmer future.
Summer in the city like no other, at least for Londoners more used to opening up their brollies for the rain. And it's not just people wilting in unprecedented temperatures, it's the city itself. From old Victorian buildings holding in heat to those underground furnaces known as subway cars.
The oldest metros in the world, and so they weren't designed for temperatures of 40 degrees.
London Mayor Sadiq Khan, hosting his counterparts from around the world to talk climate change, says London's urban poor are the most affected by the city's current heat wave.
The environmental crisis is also an issue of social justice. That's why it's really important that where national governments are failing, city mayors are stepping up.
The meeting just happens to coincide with Britain's hottest ever day and fires burning on the edges of London. Experts say big urban centres can often be much hotter than rural areas.
They call it the urban heat island effect, where the city's surfaces, like rooftops or the pavement below, absorb sunlight and then trap heat.
Environmentalists say there are ways to plan for cooler cities.
We would call it green infrastructure, things like green roofs and green walls, but also just increasing the amount of parks and gardens.
Painting rooftops white or attaching reflective tiles is another.
And it means that they reflect the incoming solar energy before it has time to get absorbed into the building fabric, and that can be quite effective.
London has planted nearly 500,000 trees over the past 5 years, according to the mayor, and he's not the only one taking a swipe at the national government. Currently in the midst of a leadership contest in which climate change has factored little.
There are real questions about how seriously the government is taking it and how prepared they are. They seem to be turning up with a watering can when what we need is a giant fire hose.
That was before today's fires broke out. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
And for more on what's driving this heat, let's check in with our meteorologist, Johanna Wagstaffe. So, Joe, a lot of what's playing out in Europe and the UK is eerily similar to our own heat dome about a year ago. What stands out for you this time around about this?
You're right, Leanne. Same heat dome setup. It lasted a lot longer for us in BC. Really just a 2-day event for the UK, but it continues across Europe. We know, as we heard, climate change is a major factor in the likelihood of an event like this happening. But something that surprised me is the fact that we are in a La Nina weather pattern. Let me show you what that looks like. This is when the equatorial Pacific waters are cooler than normal. Trade winds push the warm pool westward, allowing cooler water from deep within the Pacific Ocean to well to the surface. And that changes weather patterns all over the world, including for the UK. And typically this time of the year, in a La Nina, we have a cooling influence. So unbelievable that we are breaking these all-time records, and you can see these current temperatures tonight, still quite warm under a La Nina weather influence. All of our hottest years on planet Earth have been under the hotter El Nino. 2016 and 2020 were our hottest years tied. Those were under El Nino. So the fact that we're seeing this kind of heat, Leanne, in a La Nina is very concerning. And we'll wait for that rapid attenuation study to tell us just how much more likely this event was because of climate change. It'll likely be around 100 times more likely.
Wow, okay. All right, so Joe, how is La Nina going to affect the rest of our summer forecast here in BC?
Yes, great question. We know La Nina has been dominating since the fall. We came out of that hot El Nino last summer right into a cold and snowy La Nina, but we're starting to see it wane, and that is coinciding with our heat up that is coming. Let me take you to the satellite and radar. High pressure is building, and we are looking at what is the longest, hottest, driest stretch we've seen so far this season as we, for the first time, really get heat being pumped up from the south. So even though La Nina is still in place, is waning enough that we're going to see some of that heat and dry conditions from the U.S. stick around for most of BC for the foreseeable future. And Leanne, I'm showing you the fire danger rating because this is going to look very different as we head into the weekend. And I'll tell you exactly what those numbers will look like a little bit later on in the show.
Okay, we'll talk in a bit. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau continues his tour of BC, and today was on Bowen Island, where he made a further commitment to marine protection. He extended funding for the Oceans Protection Plan, which was originally launched in 2016 at a cost of $1.5 billion. That budget has now increased to $2 billion for use over the next 9 years.
We'll take action to combat emerging threats to our marine safety and ecosystems, and we'll strengthen partnerships with Indigenous peoples who must be our partners and in many ways our leaders as we move forward on protecting these extraordinary ecosystems.
The Ocean Protection Plan contributes to ecosystem conservation, wildlife research and supply chain management along Canada's ocean coastlines, the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence River. If you've ever typed your name into your phone only to have it autocorrect to something completely different, you know you're not alone. Coming up, the fix to your technical name woes. And thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream. A new addition to Halifax Pride this year, sober spaces for adults. It's all thanks to LGBTQ plus addictions groups. As Victoria Wellen tells us, they're having an impact in Halifax and across the country.
Patrick Maubert and Leanne Khoury met up here at the Glitterbee Cafe a few years ago. They decided to create an LGBTQ addiction support group, something they felt was missing from their community.
The idea of it is having a safe space to come and to talk about the underlying issues of, why we might feel extra triggered or the need to use substances.
LGBTQ folks are at a higher risk for mental health and substance use disorders. Part of the reason for that is something Natania Marcus calls minority stress.
What that looks like for people is sort of moving around in the world with stigma about their identity, experiencing violence and discrimination at much higher rates, and so also seeing lots of higher rates of trauma.
Untoxicated Queers was formed during the pandemic, so their meetings are virtual. But that's allowed them to reach out to even more people across the country, like Roz in Victoria, BC, who started using drugs at 15.
So being able to go to a space, what was Zoom, a physical space, and being like, oh, other people understand me here. Other people are working on the same struggles I am. And in a lot of cases, other people are succeeding in super fantastic ways.
Khoury is also the health and wellness lead for Halifax Pride. She says the festival can often be a trigger for those experiencing addictions. Many of the events take place around bars or nightclubs.
So it made me just realize how important these sober spaces are for queer and trans folks in Halifax.
Thanks to Maubert and Khoury, there's now a sober area open every night during Pride celebrations at the Garrison grounds. Victoria Welland, CBC News, Halifax.
A new dictionary has been launched to help people with non-anglicized names to reclaim their identity. Eliminate Hate is behind the initiative. They're hoping to normalize the thousands of Asian names in word processing software where non-English identities are shown as errors.
Hi, my name is Divya, and that's spelled D-I-V-Y-A.
Hi, my name is Young C. It's spelled Y-U-N-X-I.
My name is Suchitha, and that's spelled S-U-C-H-I-T-H-T-H-A. Seeing my name underlined in red makes me feel invalidated, like someone needs to correct who I am.
It just makes me feel that
And for more on this, we're joined by Zoe C. She's an ambassador with Eliminate Hate, and she's also a Pulitzer Prize-nominated cartoonist. And so, Zoe, tell me, what's been your experience, seeing your name in print and seeing it underlined in red? What does it say to you when you see that?
So I have an anglicized first name because my mom and dad thought it would make it easier for me to blend in if I had an English name, Zoe. But no one knows how to pronounce my last name. My last name is C, and people see it and they say Sai. So I've been called Zoe Sai, in professional settings my whole life. And it's something that you learn to brush off because that's what a microaggression is. You encounter it and you feel kind of weird and then you just ignore it. But of course, it's very awkward to have to continuously interrupt people to correct them, to correct them. And sometimes what'll happen is I'll just last the entire interaction with them mispronouncing my name, and then I just have to forget about it. So it certainly makes you feel very awkward and excluded.
Yeah, and it's a bit unsettling, hey? So, how do you see, you're an ambassador for this program, so how do you see this dictionary as a tool to help combat anti-Asian hate?
Right, so it's the first dictionary of its kind. So far, there has been no dictionary of Asian names, and so every Asian name is kind of excluded from the mainstream institutions by default. So what we're hoping this can do is just to start a larger conversation about why that is. Why, when 18% of the Canadian population is Asian, we still are excluded in this way. And the dictionary only, it contains 8,000 different names from over a dozen Asian countries. Obviously, that's not exhaustive, but we think it can be a powerful tool for starting this conversation.
And so if someone has a less common name, non-anglicized, not necessarily Asian, and it's not recognized by the dictionary, what can they do? How do you manipulate or work with this tool?
Yeah, so everyone can go to the campaign website at namereclaim.ca, and they can download the dictionary for free, and they can also add their own name to the dictionary. And in this way, we're hoping to include as many people as possible.
And for you, what's the most powerful part of this whole campaign and being a part of it and choosing to speak out?
Yeah, so I think that there has been such an awakening in the past couple of years about racial justice and all the small ways that we've been kind of living with this. And what this means to me is that we are finally awakening to the fact that we don't have to live in discomfort anymore, and that we don't have to brush aside all these small things. We can really feel empowered to change the institutions so that everyone can feel included and equal.
Absolutely, and some of these small microaggressions, like you say, they build up, and it can really make you question your identity and what's considered normal, right? All right, thank you so much, Zoe, for coming in to talk to us today. Zoe C. is an ambassador for Eliminate Hate.
Thank you so much.
It's back. Random airport testing for foreign arrivals has returned. The backlash and the government's reasoning of why we need to be on the lookout. That's next.
Hi, where's home? How long are you down?
Penticton, BC, the second busiest border crossing west of Ontario. 7,000 to 8,000 vehicles go through here on a busy day. It's estimated 5 to 10% of people try to smuggle something into Canada without paying duty and taxes, but only half get caught. Long lines and lots of paperwork often meant custom officers either issued warnings or waved suspected smugglers through. The new system has less paperwork and a simpler set of fines. It's supposed to cut the old search and seizure time of 1 to 2 hours in half.
We're anticipating that it's going to reduce the time that our officers are involved in seizure actions and free them up to concentrate on servicing the primary traffic lanes and also to increase their level of enforcement.
Alcohol and tobacco smugglers will be hardest hit. If you're caught sneaking these over the border, this is where your vehicle will end up, locked in a compound. You'll lose everything you bought, and you'll be fined $30 for every carton of cigarettes and $10 for every liter of alcohol you tried to smuggle. Refuse to pay, and your car stays here. The fines for smuggling other things range from 25% to 80% of the value of the item.
We feel that we have to make sure that our level of enforcement increases along the same lines that our traffic increases.
Does that mean catching more smugglers?
Definitely, yes.
Do you think it's a good idea that they're doing that?
Yeah, I think so, sure. Yeah, we've gotta make, provide to the law.
I think they need to make some changes in the duty and so on, and let's get a little more realistic, because we're getting hit all over the place with the costs of living, and people are coming here because it's cheaper.
Yeah, there goes those 2 jugs of milk. It's a scene Canadian retailers hate. They say they're losing $3 billion a year to cross-border shopping, but this American store owner is happy. He says reducing the waiting lines at the border is going to make shopping at his store even easier.
If it makes the decongestion easier in town, then more people are going to feel at ease to come here and shop.
This crackdown on smugglers will be tested here and at the Aldergrove border crossing for 60 days. If it shortens the lines and deters smugglers the way customs officials hope it will, the plan will be expanded to border crossings across Canada. Donna Friesen, CBC News at the Huntingdon border crossing.
Random tests at airports for foreign travelers are back. They will now be done off-site, and while the government says they're still needed, as Greg Ross reports, not every expert agrees.
Just weeks after the federal government paused its random testing program for international travelers, it's now back. It didn't receive a warm welcome from many affected by it today.
It's very frustrating because we are fully vaccinated.
I don't think it's necessary. I'm tired. The extra steps are unnecessary for me.
We're kind of over it.
The federal government says it's necessary in order to detect any COVID-19 variants that may be coming into the country.
I think the real question here is, what are you doing with this data to help create a safer environment for Canadians?
Infectious disease physician Dr. Isaac Bogosh says while the data collected from these tests could be helpful, there are other ways the government can get it.
Like wastewater surveillance on airplanes, like surveys to people who test positive through other mechanisms. I don't think it does anything to control the spread, but it can potentially, and again, we need more transparency here, but it can potentially drive public health responses.
The government has made some changes to the testing policy. Travelers are no longer required to wait in line to take a test at the airport.
And they will send you the details to your email, and you get to do it at home.
Those selected will receive an email within 15 minutes of arriving. It will provide information on how they can arrange a test through an approved provider in the region where they live or where they'll be staying. Some in the tourism industry say random testing will still have an impact.
Anything that is complicating the travel process, the travel journey right now, is having a negative impact on the return of people traveling again. It makes people stop and think and maybe make a different decision about where they're choosing to vacation.
According to the government's testing guidelines, anyone who does test positive will be required to isolate for 10 days. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
And back to one of our top stories now. It is official. BC Attorney General David Eby is running for leader of the NDP. If he wins, he will become premier of this province. And at this point, he has no challenger, so very likely. Mira Baines has been watching the announcement live from Eby's riding in Vancouver Point Grey. So, Mira, we heard a little bit of his announcement, him making the announcement official that he's throwing his hat in the ring. What else did we hear about tonight? You can see the event just wrapping up behind you.
Oh, so this really wraps up weeks and weeks of speculation. There's been a big show of support here in Kitsilano for David Eby. He's Attorney General and Minister responsible for housing. He also used to be the head of the BC Civil Liberties Association. And his passion is housing, and that was clear in his speech that he made earlier. He also said that he has the support of 48 out of 57 MLAs, and we saw many of those MLAs and ministers from the NDP caucus here at the announcement. It was basically a who's who of NDP caucus members, including Health Minister Adrian Dix, Labour Minister Harry Baines. We saw Bruce Ralston here as well. And there were several of them here as well as watching online. Eby made the announcement earlier today. I want you to take a listen to what he said about housing.
We can do it on our own. We can do it in partnership with Indigenous people. We can do it in partnership with the private sector. We can build housing that is rent to own. We can build housing that is long-term lease. We can build co-ops and affordable rental and structure it so if government changes hands, the next government can't come in and pretend the budget is balanced by selling it off.
The big message here today at Kitsilano Neighborhood House from David Eby's launch is unity. And that's a legacy from Premier John Horgan, and that's what many of the NDP caucus members said today, that John Horgan is leaving this legacy of a united party, and Eby plans to continue with that. And it's possible that he could become premier before December 3rd, and that's when the NDP party was supposed to be voting for the leadership. But according to their rules, BC's chief electoral officer for this election could make a decision to have that vote happen earlier if no one else runs, if Eby is acclaimed. Leanne?
All right, thank you so much, Mira. Mira Baines live at the announcement by David Eby that he is running for the leadership of the BC NDP. Thanks, Mira. And it is 6:44 p.m. There's a live look out towards, what are we looking out? Towards the North Shore there. Gorgeous, gorgeous night, very warm. How hot is it going to get? Johanna has the details coming up.
The Yukon government has a database of about 500 plane crashes in the Yukon.
The U.S. Air Force was flying military personnel south out of Alaska.
It was headed to Great Falls, Montana. 44 people on board. 3 civilians, the woman with her child, and she was pregnant.
It baffles me. You just wonder, how could something that big not be found yet?
They were flying at 200 miles an hour. At the right altitude, everything was fine. They flew over Snag and reported to Snag radio, and their next station to talk to would have been Asiac. And they didn't report Asiac.
The C-54 Skymaster, you know, it was one of the most significant search and rescue operations ever carried out in North America. Thousands of people were involved looking for the plane, hundreds of aircraft.
But they knew nothing about searching.
He went out every year searching for her. He never, ever gave up his search for her.
He told Mother that one day he was going to leave and never come back. Mother said all he had to do was reach over and tap a switch to send out an SOS. I just hope it was instant.
My mother was home at the time that this would have happened, and she said that all of a sudden she felt like she was on fire. She felt the plane had crashed and burned.
I cannot, for the life of me, understand why the search would not have been taken up again later in the summer when all the snow is gone. This is a period of history that I think the forces would rather forget.
This is the little certificate that Barack Obama sent, and that's it. That's all we ever got.
And it's a sad occasion when you can't get someone to come out and look for 44 people.
And if that is going to be the way it is, you know what? I think we can get the government back on board. We can maybe embarrass them enough to say, look, you don't leave people behind.
People in the Yukon have been looking for this aircraft ever since it crashed. They're always looking out for bits and pieces of wreckage. We haven't stopped searching. They have not been forgotten. You can't hide something that big forever.
A Langley country musician has recovered a guitar that was stolen from him 15 years ago after finding it for sale on Craigslist. It was lost in 2007 along with 13 other guitars when Mitch Merritt's storage unit was robbed. He's made a habit of scanning Craigslist, where he's recovered a few of his items over the years. And when he saw that green Telecaster guitar, he knew it was his.
Telecaster in particular was a gift from my mom and dad. I got it in '98, so we're going back quite a few years, but I started doing country gigs, and you know, Dad thought if I'm going to do a country gig, I better have a Telecaster because that's what we play.
The musician was able to retrieve the guitar the next day with the help of Surrey RCMP. Gotta love a good ending, right, Joe?
Yes, it's all about that. Yeah, exactly.
And Joe, it has been, you know, a slow start to summer. Hey, and it looks like nice ending for us. It's picking up.
That was an excellent segue, Leanne. Yes, we've got a nice ending to summer. If you were looking forward to some at least seasonal temperatures, some sunshine, more than a few days, that's what we've got on tap. Let me start you off with our current temperatures. Of course, we'll be talking about the other side to the summer weather coming up in a bit. 21 right now at YVR. Over the next few days, we're really going to see those temperatures climb. Abbotsford out at a 26 right now, 26 for Hope. And temperatures across the island, Port Alberni will be watching you closely over the next couple of days, hitting the 30s. And this was without a humidex value. We're really going to notice that build over the next couple of days as well, as that high pressure ridge really takes hold across the province. Let's see if I can advance us to the next board here. I mean, these current temperatures are lovely, and we will continue to see them heat up in the long range forecast. That high pressure is really going to pump in the heat towards early next week. We're talking high 20s to low 30s for parts of Metro Vancouver, really starting Sunday into Monday. And that's when we'll be looking for temperatures across the interior to rise into the mid to high 30s as well. There we go, 35 and through Soyuz tomorrow. Temperatures will come down a little bit Thursday into Friday, and then it's the weekend into early next week that I imagine we'll see heat warnings being issued from Environment Canada. And we still are under that La Nina weather pattern. It's expected to rebuild in the fall, but it's waning just enough for that heat to build in from the south. Again, Sunday into Monday is when I think we will see widespread heat warnings. So now is the time, as we've been saying, to come up with your heat emergency plan, even just with low 30 temperatures. But after a week, we will be talking about drought and fire conditions. Not much in the way of rain. You can see how dry it is across most of the province tomorrow. Prince Rupert starting off with a bit of cloud before we finally get you into those temperatures that will at least hit your seasonal mark. There we go, 24 for YVR tomorrow. That'll translate to a 29 inland. Coming down a little bit for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then look at that, Leanne. Those are YVR forecast temperatures hitting 30s for parts of Metro Vancouver. We'll definitely keep you posted. So we'll enjoy the summer, but there's definitely a bit of a watch on the end of that.
Yes, absolutely. Lots of sunscreen and ice water needed.
Yes, good advice.
All right, thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
It wasn't porridge on offer at a Manitoba cabin. It was cake. And for one bear, it was just right. Why the owners are both hot and cold about the whole bear visit. Next. Hunting black bears in part of the Great Bear Rainforest is now banned, all in an effort to save spirit bears. The offspring of some black bears become spirit bears with that beautiful all-white fur. The rare animal, also known as Kermode bears, are seen in about 1 in 10 black bears in the Great Bear Rainforest, with the highest global prevalence in Kitasoo-Hayhays and Gitga'at territories. The provincial hunting ban follows a joint proposal from the nations to ensure the long-term survival of the white bear.
We're just super happy that the province, was finally able to get to this point. I think it certainly respects our culture. It does some great things for bears, and we hope that the work that we're doing now is safeguards it for everyone to come in and enjoy things like the spirit bears.
Both nations run bear viewing businesses that are major employers and revenue earners for the communities. It has been illegal to kill a spirit bear since the early 20th century. A family in Manitoba made a scary discovery early Monday morning. They found a black bear roaming their cabin. They called for help, but by the time anyone got there, the furry intruder had left. And as Stephanie Cram reports, not before helping itself, though, to some tasty treats.
Kat Duvona was woken up by the sound of a cabin window being smashed. Turns out the culprit was a bear.
We have no idea how he did that. He must have clawed it out that direction. The screens are all busted, and there's glass all throughout here and on here.
Duvona, her mother, sister, and their 7 kids were all sleeping in a newer section of their cabin. The only thing between them and the bear was a door closed by a small latch.
Once we knew that all the kids were okay, then our next move was to barricade the one door, the kind of screen door that separates the 2 sides of the cottage. And then my sister took the little kids and barricaded them in a bedroom.
The family says they watched the bear enter the 2 storage rooms. The bear helped himself to bags of Doritos, granola bars, and Danishes. For her daughter Jubilee, this morning she was sad to find her favorite dessert was gone.
My favorite cake, chocolate cake, we found on the ground, all eaten. So the bear ate the chocolate cake.
After discovering the bear roaming in the cabin, Duvono's sister immediately called 911, but she was redirected to RCMP and then to the province's conservation department.
Somebody on the other end who identified themselves as a conservation officer then told her that there was nobody on duty right now, that her best bet was to hang up and give 911 a call back.
They called 911 again and was dispatched to the RCMP unit in Selkirk.
They were quite upset that conservation wasn't coming out to us, but they got on the road. It took them about an hour to get here, and they even contacted us on the way to let us know that they did not know what they were going to do when they got here.
The family says the keys to their car was in the room with the bear. They said they felt trapped waiting almost an hour for officers to arrive. By the time officers got there, the bear had left. Later in the morning, conservation showed up with a bear trap, advising the family to remain nearby to keep an eye on the trap.
We are told that the bear now sees our house as a place to get a reward or a food source, and that it will be back. They fully expect that it will return at some point. Our hope is that it would go into the bear trap and not into the cottage.
Despite the terrifying wake-up call and the lack of sleep, the family remains in good spirits. Stephanie Cram, CBC News, Lester Beach, Manitoba.
Oh, well, you know what? I've heard of bears, hunting, rummaging around for food and people's cars and whatnot and garbage left outside. But first time I've heard of bear actually going inside someone's cottage. And that bear had good taste, chocolate cake. All right, that's it for us tonight. Thank you for being with us this evening on CBC News at 6. And I want to remind you, as always, if you're not already watching us on CBC Gem, that is our free app. You might want to check it out. And Dan Burritt will be back at 11 p.m. This evening after the National, and I'll be back here tomorrow. Have a good night.